multiple things right here.
Alrighty, that's fine. Here's my suggestion to everybody. We're going to be doing raffle prizes and we're going to be pulling all of those soon. So if you haven't as yet purchased a raffle ticket on the Encaptive site, go ahead and get one of those because we have tons of great raffle prizes and they are all geared at getting you and your business more visible. So the next session is going to be pretty interesting. I think you're all going to like it because we're going to also get into breakout rooms. But I want to invite, if you are not muted, I want to invite you to just mute for a second. And I want to invite, let's see, let's get Zeph. I'm going to go ahead and pin you here. And I'm also going to pin Jen Jones. Multitasking. There we go. And I'm going to ask you guys to go ahead and unmute because we're going to have a little bit of a conversation before we get started with our breakout rooms. So Jen wrote a book and it's an international bestseller. And I bet you have a copy of it, Jen, that you can hold up for us and show to us. Somebody should. So Jen describes herself as an introvert. And I describe myself as maybe an ambivert. And anybody know what Zeph would describe herself as? Anybody? If you think you know what Zeph is, drop it in the chat. What do you think Zeph describes herself as? It's such a deep thought that we have to get
Very
into to
difficult.
figure this out. You think, yeah, Zeph is definitely an introvert, right? Uh,
Yes,
no?
yes, for sure.
I was once, so I was once, I don't know, I was called, there's a different, that's a different personality chart. I remember a term used for me and I was like, oh, that's a new one. Has anyone heard of the word sanguine?
Tell
And I
us
was
more
like,
about that.
it's like an introvert who has mixed of a little bit of personalities here and there, and then also colorful. I'm like, oh, that's definitely me, who probably is a little bit chirpy and walks with a little bit of bounce. And I was like, oh, not just an extrovert. No, they go like, you're more of a sanguine. Is all that plus a little bit, because I also have a little bit of introvertness to me, because whenever I go to work, I'm like, no. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I would love for you, Jen, because obviously you wrote the book about it. So why wouldn't we have you share this with us? Jen, can you share with us about what the different personality types really should look forward to in terms of the networking that they're out there doing? So maybe start with the introvert since that seems to fit your personality.
Yeah, so I'll chime in here really quick where, when I think of, putting people in boxes as introvert, extrovert, there's obviously the mix of everything, but the bottom line is in most cases, when you're an introvert, you get your energy from going inward and being alone. And an extrovert typically gets most of their energy from being with lots of other people, and they build off the energy of other people. So, networking as an introvert, I don't know where you want me to start. So, I'm just going to start. So, in my mind, networking as an introvert might be a little bit of a like, I want to get into my shell and not show up for networking events, or not show up to meet one on one, not show up for the follow up, which is a big one too. But as introverts, we can really set intentions that make a difference for us. And if we set intentions to meet or get to know one person deeply, I think that it's a win. And then if we're talking about being in person, there's always opportunity to leave the room and go be quiet somewhere, which I did yesterday. I didn't know it was almost done, but I went the bathroom and I'm like, this bench looks really nice for me to relax on. So that's what I have to say in a brief recap of being an introvert and being out there networking.
Thank you so much, Jen. And I'm just wondering, is there anybody here who identifies as an introvert? You could just drop it in the chat. I see Shell is saying she's an introvert. Using Hannah's in a swing state. Vicky's an introvert. Liz Hill is an introvert. Barb says it might surprise everyone, but she's an introvert. Candy, mostly introvert. Seems like we have a lot of introverts here on the call, or people who identify in that manner. You know, I love, Jen, though, that you've made it really, really clear that it does, being an introvert doesn't say that you're a quiet person. It just says where you get energized from. And that's what I think is the important distinction. And so that's why I find that I'm able to identify as this ambivert, because whereas I get tremendous energy from being in community, it's so much more energetic for me to be in community. I still do also need to spend some time on the side recharging. Mina says, I am an ambivert too. Anybody else relate to that ambivert quality? Anybody else feels like they're they get energy in both places and they have to do both things, or it's not going to be satisfying for them? You can drop in the chat. Marla says ambivert. Marianne Cruz, I knew you would say that you're an ambivert too. I get that. I know that's one of the reasons why we get along so well. Shonda is an ambivert. Carlene, Lori, Katie, and Marla. Oh, we had this conversation yesterday in person. Marla says, I need interaction. More than one day alone, I go crazy, then need to wind down again. So it's not one size fits all. And for people who are the ambivert, the managing of the energy is going to be so very important. You have to know when are the right times for you to get out there and network in places where you're with other people. And then you also have to know when it's important to conserve your energy. And I see Jen shaking her head because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. And we've had this conversation. Zeph, as an extrovert, I feel like it's okay for us to put you in that category because I see it. You say you're not like drinking coffee all the time, but you are definitely pulling energy from interacting with people. Tell us a little bit
Yes.
about some of the do's and don'ts of networking as an extrovert.
So one of the things that I've had to learn and master, and this is in relationship with what I just shared in the workshop, is I've had to tone it up, tone it down, be in between, right? An extrovert actually works hard to do that because there are times when I scare people away, and there are times people need to rent my energy. I'm like, here, take it away, right? Some people just like, oh my God. There was once I was like the first 3 months, I was online doing a lot of virtual stuff. Somebody from the UK. So she's kind of like that a little bit, right? So she said to me, because at that time I was using a lot of my branding was 200 miles per hour kind of gal. So she goes like, tell me all about this 200 miles per hour. I said, well, that obviously shares with you like who I am. I'm fast, I'm an extrovert. And she goes like, she actually made that conversation as a topic in one of her shows with her tribe. And I'm like, but 200 miles per hour. And then she says, how does that affect the audiences? And this is something I'm sharing. You could probably relate to this. It could be a point of this yes connection conversation, right? So she said to me, but how does that affect other people in the audience who's not used to that energy? I had to pause for a moment, but somebody had mentioned this in one of my mentors mentioned this to me. Well, then if they can't relate to your energy, they're probably not your people. They're probably not your tribe because they can't get your vibe. So they move on to the next person. You cannot, alter your gifts because those are gifts from higher power, whatever, right? Those are your gifts. And if you're not leveraging your gifts, then you're not leveraging your power. And I was like, oh, you mean I don't have to adjust this to other people's expectations or right size it for other people's expectations? You go like, no. And then when I shared with her that, she goes like, oh my God, that makes sense. And that's what I've had to do a lot. Sometimes I forget that who I am, and I bring that energy, and you're absolutely right, Davia. For me, I may not have had a drop of caffeine for the day, but I show up that way because it's who I am. It's my gift, and also something uh probably somebody else needs for the day. I don't know. I show up the way I was built, not the way Davia was built, not the way Liz was built. I show up the way I was built, whether it vibes with you or not, or whether you can leverage what I have to bring. Because for me, it's the people that I love you people. That brings me up on a high. People think I'm on cocaine or drugs. I'm like, no, it's just people showing up in my space. I love that. Can we say show of hands, everybody? Yeah. Nobody wants to. I can see that. Yeah, those are the introverts going like, yeah. The extra ones are going like, you see Bob's going all that, So, and it reminded me, my mentor reminded me, you show up as you. You can't wear somebody else's shoes. You can't put on somebody else's top. You are you. When you start designing your conversations or how you show up based on what other people perceive you as, then you're not showing up as your true authentic self. You're shaving off your gifts. And I'm thinking like, oh my God. So when I shared that information with this gal from the UK, she goes like, you're absolutely right. And I said, my goal when I show up in videos is for people to resonate with me, my message. They come to me, not me go to them. Because at the end of the day, that's how I get my yes conversations. Boom.
Awesome. I love that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break us out into little tiny breakout rooms. There are going to probably be about 2 or 3 of you in each room. Now, each person is going to get about a minute or so, maybe, yeah, about a minute or so. And I would like for you to take your minute to share with the other person about your communication style and how you find it best networking. What's the best way that you find to network based on whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert? All right. So as you see the join, just join the group and we'll be back here in just a few minutes.
you're really great at people.
Hey guys, I'm just popping in. Everybody understand the question?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, chat. And people were always like, I always end up in positions where I was doing events or I was leading the room and blah, blah, blah. And I got good at it, but it was really draining. And I didn't understand why until the pandemic happened. And a lot of people were like sad, they're home, they can't go anywhere. I was thrilled. I was just like, what is going on? I was like, I could go a whole nother year. I'm like, this is so strange. And that's actually how I discovered that I was more introverted than extroverted. I do love engaging and all of that, but I tap out, I get tired. And so it was funny. And it was just like life-changing for me, that discovery. I had no idea.
That is so awesome.
I had no
That's
idea.
so awesome.
So
yeah, for me, I'm much more introverted. So the pandemic really didn't affect me at all.
Yeah.
Because I'm home most of the time anyway. So that really, everybody was talking about how, oh, it's just horrible. I can't go anywhere. I'm like, I don't feel a thing.
Yeah.
A trip to the grocery store once a week, and that was about it anyway. So
I love that.
Yeah, I saw somebody, I think it might have been Mina. She said she loves to plan and she loves to have something to plan for, but then when she gets ready to have to get ready to go, then it's like, oh, I don't want to go. That's so me. I love to have something to do and I think that I want to go do it. And then it's like, do I have to get dressed? Do I have to go? So yeah, my energy is definitely alone. I like being around people for a very short time at a time. I mean, even when the kids pile in here or whatever, there are times that I have to like walk out and just go sit outside for a few minutes because just that too much energy, it just feels like it's bombarding me and I just have to, okay, we can do this again.
I'm right there with you. I was a few years ago, I was a maid of honor, and I actually took a few moments. I had to step outside of the wedding because there was so much going on. And I walked around the whole block in gown and everything of this venue, then came back and then I was ready to continue my duties. But it was a lot. And so I definitely hear you on needing to step away. Take a second.
So I guess the question is, since we are, networking and connecting with each other and that sort of thing, how can you best manage your energy based on the energy type that you are to maximize the connections that you make?
For me, I know that I have got to not, if I get 2 calls on my schedule a day and it's like every day that week or something, it's just too much for me. And even my podcast, I'm doing it live this year. I started having it in the afternoon because I thought it would be best for everybody else, but my energy wasn't right. So I had to tell everybody, we're going to start shifting to morning hours because I knew what my energy was. And so yeah, for me, I have to really watch how many things I have going in the week, day after day after day after day.
So it's about the schedule for you, making
Yeah.
sure that you're making time to network, but also making sure that you're making time for yourself, since networking is still a big part of it. Cool. All right, you guys keep talking among yourselves. I'm gonna pop into another one of the rooms, just
Thanks for visiting. It's good to see you.
check in and make sure everybody's doing okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Candy, how do you do yours?
So for me, what's ended up happening as a result of this discovery, right? Part of it is just changing my whole business model. So my background and history of working was always
No, I'm an introvert, 100%.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which is good
Interesting.
pairing today, because I was able to share with her some things, and she agreed, and we were like saying like, oh yeah, the circle needs to be bigger, right? And people, when they have conversations, sometimes they forget that circle closed up, and somebody needs to break that circle to include that other person. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, like too, when I'm in a networking group, if there's someone like you who is inviting people, I will go back to that networking group versus if you
Yes.
just feel like not invited at all. I
I'm
don't
going to
want
invite
that.
you to share that with the group when we get back into the big
Yep.
group. That'll be, I think that's a huge takeaway that, you know, we
Yep.
have to remember as event organizers or even attending events to pull out other people and be inviting of
Yes.
other people, because not everybody is exactly the same as you. And even if you're an
Correct.
introvert, if you can invite another introvert to come
Yes.
along, it can be really huge.
It's
Right.
true.
Having a menu of a la carte items that you can do at a networking event, that is awesome. Yeah,
All
definitely.
right. Heading back up. Opportunity for us to bring in some main points that might have shown up for you as you were having these conversations. I want to ask Teresa to share a point that she made in one of the groups that I popped into. I popped into a couple of different groups just to see how all y'all were doing. And Teresa made a really, really valid point. I was asking, you know, when you have to balance your energy based on where you get your energy from, whether it's getting your energy from the crowd or whether it's getting your energy from inside or whether you need both. When you have to make that energy balance and at the same time, you have to balance your networking time, what are some of the things that make you keep going back to certain networking groups over others? And Teresa had a really great point. Would you mind sharing, Teresa?
Yeah, so my point was about inclusion, and Zeph and I were talking about how a lot of us, it's kind of natural when we talk, we create these little groups and these little circles and we kind of close off everybody else. And Zeph was talking about how she pays attention to people outside of the circle and will invite them in. So whenever I go to a new networking group, I kind of look for that. I look to see if people are welcoming me and including me, because I am not great about just approaching people randomly and talking. Like, that's not me at all. So if people are very welcoming and very inclusive, like my first ladies power lunch, I had so many people come up to me and just welcome me. I wanted to go back. So that is a huge, huge thing that I look for.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we were talking a little bit in a group where we had Marianne, and Marianne, I would love to invite you and Candy to unmute and just share a little bit about the experience that you mentioned when it comes to making that balance and that scheduling as far as preserving your own energy for networking.
Yeah, for me, it's knowing that I'm an introvert and that's where I gain my energy. I love being around people. I love interacting and talking, but I have to pull back. I'm kind of like what Jen said. You have to like walk out of the room, even if and scheduling, knowing that I can't do 3 calls a day every day in a week. That just wears me out, and I'm not good for anybody by the time I get to Thursday, so I'm not there with them. So for me, was that it's recognizing that I can't overbook.
How many of us are guilty of overbooking, like booking back to back to back Zoom sessions when we know that we're introverts? And one of the things that I think we should all really tune into is how effective are we really being when we're networking from a place that's depleted? Am I right? Anybody agree with that? Anybody get that? Yeah. Candy, you had also mentioned about, that whole scheduling piece. Would you like to share?
Yes. So one of the things that I shared was a discovery that I had during the pandemic, which was I was actually more introverted. And I realized that when everything kind of went quiet for a while, and I was really happy, and I couldn't figure out why, because I was leading events and doing all these things, which I love to do, but it was very draining. And so what came out of it was really changing my business model and how I worked with people. And that's what I spent the past year building out, or have been building out and shifting, because I realized there just had to be a change. Otherwise, it wasn't going to be sustainable. I wasn't going to be good for anybody. Definitely not good for her. And so it was one of those things where it was such a blessing to realize that. And I don't think I would have had it not been for, being forced to stay home and realize, oh my goodness, this is different. And I was able to focus and do so much more in terms of just developing and connecting with women virtually, which I really love to do. So yeah, it was really a gift. It was really a gift. But business model, for me, it was business model.
Daphne agrees. Absolutely. So adorable. Anybody else had any really, really wonderful takeaways from our time networking together? And yes, Daphne is such a cutie. If you could just raise your hand, or you could just unmute, and we can talk about what your takeaway was. I see you, Lisa.
Oh my gosh, so cool, because Katie, she said the name of her city. I won't reveal it because I want to keep the mystery alive here, but she said the name of her city, and I was like, oh, I've always wanted to go there and visit. And she's like, well, come on over. So I think I got a vacation out of that little networking thing that we got. Did anyone else get a free vacation?
That's awesome. That's awesome. I noticed, was it you that mentioned in the chat that you really try to keep your Zoom calls shorter?
I think that was someone else, but I think Marianne said 15 to 30 minutes. I can honestly do a lot. I love chatting Zoom or phone. I'm really good at that. And I don't, but there's a certain level that I know. So I think it's like really finding your own level, like what's your capacity, and to where you're like, so you don't want to be like bitter, right? Like no bitter networking or engaging, connecting. Like once you start to feel the bitterness, you're like, oh, I need to go. I think that's key.
That's absolutely true. And so yeah. I think that's the key takeaway here for all of us. Somebody else was unmuting. Somebody else had a comment. Oh, there you are. It's either Liz or Wendy Lee, or maybe both.
Hi, everybody. We come for a 2-for-1 today.
Ooh.
So we've been having some good conversations, but one thing that just popped into my mind is not only how we navigate through our energy of doing our scheduling, but how we then show up when we're talking to other people. Like, let's say we get on a call and the energy starts shifting. Like, can we step in and say, I noticed that my energy is starting to dwindle a little bit. So I'd love to wrap up what we're talking about, and maybe we can pick this up at another time. But how many times don't we do that? And then we just maybe get, I'll just use a word, resentful, or be like, I wish this person would stop talking, or whatever it is. But how would it feel if we just say, you know, I work better this way, and really set up a request so that people know, so that we don't have to just keep it up and keep it up and keep it up. That just came through, so I thought I'd share.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I think this is a great stopping point for us on this particular portion of the program, but I would invite you to spend some time looking at how you're using your energy and being really strategic. If you are the type of person who thrives on being with the community, then as you're building your schedule, building in more community interactions. That obviously makes sense. If you're somewhere in the middle, then make sure that you're balancing maybe half and half. And if you are the kind of person who thrives on your alone time, then building that alone time into the schedule is going to be best for you, because when you're energized, then you are magnetic. When you are energized, then you can answer the call and be as visible as you want to be. Zeph, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make the transition for the next session. Everybody, you can just stay right where you are, and we'll continue in just a few minutes.